This is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Welcome to the channel. My channel is all about making things affordable, practical, and easy. And what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be installing Windows on a USB drive. That's right, this is a small Samsung USB drive. But this isn't any Samsung drive. This drive reads at 400 megabytes. And that's great for Windows because now you can run Windows really quickly off of USB. And why would you want to do that? Maybe you want it as a utility, a rescue disk, maybe someone in your family has a laptop but they don't have the programs on their laptop that you maybe want to run, and so you just pop this in, boot from the USB, and you've got your own Windows, your own programs, whatever the reason. I mean, I use it a lot because I'm looking at a lot of systems and I don't want to have to install Windows on there. I don't want to put a hard drive in there or an SSD or an NVMe. It's a really easy way for me just to boot up a system and running Windows off this USB. Now, when you do Windows off a USB, you don't want to use one of these cheap ones. One like this only reads at 10, maybe anywhere from 10 to 15 or 16 megabytes per second, or at least this one reads at 400 megabytes. It writes at 65. But there's other options too, and you want to get at least 128 gigs to install Windows to go on one of these as well. But there are other options. You can use an SSD with an adapter. You can use an NVMe with an enclosure adapter. And I'm going to show you those options here really quick. But just so you know, when you first do this program, you're going to do it with a program called Rufus. And maybe you've used Rufus before and you didn't know with Rufus that you can make a Windows to go with it. It's an option that they have to run Windows off a USB. But when you do this, it still has to go, the first time you run it, it will go through some Windows setup, but it's not going to ask you all those questions. It's not going to ask you for your telemetry. It's going to skip the data collection. It's going to skip the privacy questions. All that's going to be stripped from there, and it's going to bypass your Windows login or your Windows email login to Microsoft, where it just creates a local account. So it's really slick how it works. But what I have found also, if you use this and you use an NVMe enclosure, you can use Windows to go on this, and then you can pop it in your computer using the computer's motherboard or a PCI slot and permanently install Windows on your computer without going through the install hassle of installing Windows 10 or Windows 11. It's really slick how it works. So we're going to do two things. We're going to show you how to do it on a USB with Windows 10, and then show you how to install it in your computer using an NVMe the same way. And this works with both Windows 10 and Windows 11. Works the exact same way. So let me go ahead and show you the options that you can use for doing something like this. Okay, again, this is that really slow USB. Don't use one of these. This Samsung costs around $17. They do have a 256 and a 500 gigabyte as well, but the 256 is like $25. Or you can do something like this. This one here is 256 gig for $25, and it's a read-write speed of 400. Then of course you have your NVMe. Now if you want to have an NVMe as a USB bootable, you can do that as well. You just have to have an NVMe enclosure. And then if you have an SSD, you can have one of these adapters and use it as well as boot up. Now, me personally, I just use this here. But if I'm installing Windows on a system, I will do it this way and do Windows to go, and then I'll pop it into the system and it's ready to go. So again, when you do this though, it will go through some setup things, but it's not going to ask you any questions except the Microsoft agreement. And then once we do that, once we go through the boot up, then reboot it, and you're running Windows off of your USB. So let's get started. Okay, so here we are at my Windows desktop, and so what we're going to do here is we're going to do this with a program called Rufus. There's a website here, and I'll have the link below. And what you're going to do is you're going to want to get the newest one. So the 4.5P is the newest one, and the P just means that it's portable, so you don't have to install it. This one here, you have to install it. And so I've already downloaded that. You just click on whichever one you want to download, and then it just downloads automatically. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're just going to go ahead and click on Rufus here, and my NVMe, or not my NVMe,
My USB drive, that Samsung small USB drive, is right here. And now, if you're going to do this on a larger drive, it's not going to show up here. So what you have to do here is you have to show advanced properties, and then you can hit list USB drives that are bigger. I'm not sure what the size is, where it doesn't recognize that, and it might be 200 gigs or higher. You'll have to hit this. But if your drive doesn't show up in here, just hit list USB drives. So then what we're going to do is we're going to select our ISO. I'm not showing how to download the ISO right now. I'll do that at the end because a lot of people know how to download the ISO. But we'll go ahead and go on Microsoft page and download a Windows ISO. So I'm going to grab my Windows 10 ISO right here, and we're going to do Windows 11 too. But Windows 11, what we're going to do with Windows 11 is we're going to, again, like I said, we're going to go ahead and do this same thing to a Windows with an NVMe, and then we're going to pop it into into our computer, and Windows is going to be automatically installed without us going through all that install. So now what we want to do, now that we said done this, we're going to go to image option. We're going to do Windows to go. And please, whatever you do, as I mentioned, don't do this on a regular slow USB. It will take forever, might even crash while you're doing it. It works fine with these faster USBs. And so we're going to go ahead and change this volume label. And change it here because for some reason I tried changing it in Windows and it wouldn't let me change it. So we're going to say local disk. And now we're going to go down here. We're going to leave everything default here. But we're going to go down here and we're so our advanced format options. Now we're going to leave this here, but when we do our NVMe drive that's going in our computer, we're going to take this create extended label off, and you'll see why once we get done with this and we load up Windows. Now when you hit start here, it's going to give you some options. It's going to give you options which Windows you're doing. We're doing Windows 10 Pro, and if you want to know which option you should be installing with Windows, install Windows 10 Pro. And then we're going to hit OK. Now it's going to give us some options here. So yeah, we can create a local account. I'm just calling this PC10. Set region. We can do that. We can disable data collection, skip privacy questions. We're definitely doing that. And you can do this too. The select region options. So you just want to select all those, and we're going to go ahead and hit OK now. It's just, and then it'll warn you that everything on your disk is going to be deleted. We're going to hit OK, and this will take just a few minutes. Now, the faster the drive that you put in here, the faster this will run. If you use a regular USB thumb drive, I wouldn't recommend it. Their read-write access is just too slow for Windows. So we're just going to go ahead and pause the video here. It really won't take that long, and then we'll come back and we'll go ahead and run this on our computer. Okay, once it's ready, it's just going to be solid green and it's going to say ready. So now we can close this, and we'll take our USB, put it in our computer. Hey, real quick, just a quick mention. I have a video coming up on 3 applications that you can use to debloat Windows. When you create these USB drives, or even your personal desktop, which I do, I go ahead and clean up Windows and debloat it, and then shut off some of the services that slow it down. Anyway, you can go from like 150, 160 processes down, clear down to 40 processes if you want. Anyway, stay tuned for that video. Be sure to like and subscribe, and let's go ahead and boot into this USB drive. Alright, so here I am at my boot up menu on my computer. Now, everybody's motherboard and motherboard manufacturer gets into this a little bit differently. I'm using an HP, it's F9, Dell, it's F12 or F10, I can't remember. So it just depends on what ASRock, whatever motherboard you just need to know which function key it is to allow you to boot from a USB. But you may also have to go into your BIOS and tell your motherboard that you want to boot from a USB as well. You may have to go ahead and activate that feature. But here's my Samsung drive. We're going to go ahead and just hit this here. Now what happens here it still has to do a few setup things running Windows for the first time. But it's not going to run the same amount that it runs when you're installing Windows for the first time. And then once you do this and you use it on a computer, and maybe you go to another computer, like right now I have an HP, but I do have some Dells. If I was to go to Dell, it might be refreshing the drives for that Dell. But we'll just wait a sec here, and it'll go ahead and pop up and ask some questions. Now, so here it is saying it's getting ready. Now, once it does this, it may have to reboot a couple of times, just like a normal Windows install. Just let it do its thing. So here we are at the just a moment screen. It's just collecting everything to get Windows 10 running. Now, it's going to want you to connect to the internet. Whenever I'm installing Windows 10 or Windows 11, I'm never connected to the internet, because I want to make a few changes before it starts to try and go out to update the operating system. So I'm just going to say I don't have one, and continue with limited setup. So all these questions are pretty much normal questions that you get when you're installing Windows. And we're just going to hit accept. It's going to take a minute again to get everything ready. Now, once you go through this process, though, I'm going to go ahead and reboot it, and you're going to see that, whammo, we are now using a fresh install of Windows on a USB. You can use it for a utility, maybe get into a computer that's crashed, so on and so forth. Or you can take it with you. Maybe you don't have a laptop, but you have some work to do, and maybe someone will let you use their laptop. Or someone in your family has a laptop and you want to do have your own Windows on there. This is a great way to do that. Whatever the reason is to have a portable Windows. Okay, so now we've installed this. It's ready to go. And again, for right now, I'm not going to do any updating on this. In fact, I'm going to go to updates. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to advanced options, and then I'm going to put this on pause for as long as I can there. And now this is a thing, if you want Windows to maybe update some drivers, it will update some drivers now if you put it into hook up your network, which I'm going to do here in a minute. And so then you'll have internet access, so on and so forth. But I first want to reboot this. Alright, so now we're restarting Windows, and it will just start up normally. Now again, if you put this into another system, it will say, hey, it'll try to find the drivers for that system. That's the only thing that will happen. Wants to know if I want to discover network. Sure, I'm going to hit yes, because I do have my network card in now. It went ahead and found the video driver that it needed, and so that's all there is. So now we have USB running Windows. Now if we go into the file manager, I want to show you something really quick. So what's going to happen here, this is the USB drive that we have Windows running on, and you'll notice here that it shows this as a USB drive. So what we're going to do when we install Windows 11 this way, we're going to, in Rufus, like I said, there's the one thing we're going to click off is we're going to click off an option, because it automatically will make it so this is a USB icon. You can change that in the registry, but if I'm going to install Windows this way, I don't want to see my local drive be a USB. Now, because I'm running it off a USB, I don't mind. But the NVMe that we're putting in the computer, I want to change that. So anyway, here we are with Windows installed, and we're ready to go. We can start installing programs, running stuff, so on and so forth. I can go to the internet now. I'm just going to go to a website real quick. Check out some weather, so on and so forth. So now we have full access to our computer. So now let's go ahead and install this on Windows 11. Okay, here we are at my USB desktop. Here's my drive here, my USB drive that we're running this from. I went ahead and copied Rufus over to here So let's just go ahead and, so now let's go ahead and make a USB bootable Windows 11 drive. Now, now this is what I'm talking about. I have my drive plugged in, but it doesn't see the device here, because you have to do show advanced drive properties and then hit list USB drives, and then there's my 2 terabyte drive. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and go ahead and grab Windows 11. And now, instead of a standard Windows installation, again, we're doing Windows to go. And we're going to change this to local disk again. And a lot of times this is hidden, so you have to click on show. And what we want to do is we want to take off create extended label and icon file. Otherwise, if you don't do that, if you don't want the USB icon file to show as your C drive, you have to edit in the registry, and we're just trying to do things as easy as possible. Don't want to have to do that. And so let me go ahead and put disk in here. Then we're ready to go. We just hit start, and now it's going to ask us, are we doing, which Windows version are we installing? Of course, we're going to install Windows 11 Pro, and we're going to go ahead and put all these in here. Now, prevent Windows to go from accessing internal disks. Actually, I'm not going to click on that one right now. Remove requirements for the online Microsoft account. Of course, we want to do that. We're going to create a local user. I'm just calling this PC 11, and we're going to go ahead and click off regional settings, and we're going to disable all the data collection when we first install Windows, and we're just going to hit OK. And it's warning us that everything's going to be deleted from the drive, so we're just going to hit OK, and now it's going to start. Now, when we did this before, I will say this much: as long as you use this in the in a NVMe enclosure, then you can use this as Windows 11 to go if you want, or if you're putting it on the small USB drive. But one thing I found out, as soon as I put the NVMe drive on a PCI slot, or if you put it on the motherboard's NVMe slot, once you do that, then it no longer it gives an error if you're going to take it out and use it as a USB. But if your intent is to use Windows 11 on a USB drive, it works fine. And it works fine as a USB external drive on an NVMe, but once you put it in the system with a PCI slot or on the motherboard, then for some reason it won't work as a USB drive anymore. Just remember that. But if you want to use it, say with that Samsung drive over and over, it's fine. Alright, so now our system says it's green, it's ready. So let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and put that Windows NVMe drive onto a PCI slot and run it from my computer. For the first time with the Windows to go, just like in Windows 10, for the first time starting any Windows, even the Windows to go, it's got to go through the services, it's got to collect data, it's got to collect data on your machine. It's just going to go through all that, and we'll get the devices ready, so on and so forth. And like I mentioned previously, the computer is going to reboot at least twice during this initial install. Then it's going to go ahead and do its thing here. Just a moment. Now, like I said, when I'm first booting up, I always unplug my internet or turn my Wi-Fi off to a laptop or whatever it is. I just don't want to install it and get updates right away. Setup, you just need to accept, and it'll take some more time. Okay, so all these icons and everything here, when it's done, they will show up once you plug in, activate your Wi-Fi or your network, unless you kept it activated during the setup. I just don't like to do that during the setup. And so the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go again. I'm going to go to updates, and by all means, you don't have to do this. I just like to do a few things on the system before it starts updating. So in Windows 11, instead of going to advanced features, you can pause right here and you can choose. I'm just going to pause this right now for 5 weeks. I'm not saying I'm going to pause it that long. I just want it to make sure it's paused. Again, this is personal preference because I'm going to make a lot of updates to this. I might remove some programs and stuff like that, and I just don't want it. I just don't want updates going on. I will plug in my network card because then all of these icons will show up. So I will plug it in, and so let's go ahead and reboot this now, and I'll go ahead and plug in my network card. All right, I'm going to set my new password. And you'll notice here that all those icons now have appeared. And I'm going to go ahead and set my desktop resolution, and it'll take a minute. It'll find my network card or my display driver, and we'll keep those changes. Okay, so now there are some things here. So I want to just go into the file manager. So you'll know if you've ever installed Windows 11, you're going to notice it skipped a lot of steps. It still takes a long time to do that initial setup, but one thing I do want to show you. And here's our local drive for sure, and then see how we have a hard drive icon now instead of a USB icon, and that's where we toggled off that one switch in Rufus for it not to grab the USB icon for this drive. And like I said, you can go change that in the registry, but that's way more steps. Now what I do want to show you here is, let's go to partition, and so I want to show you the partition because it does partition it a little differently. So you have your EFI partition here, then you have your Windows partition. There is no rescue partition when you create these Windows on the go. And for me, I don't really care about that because I've never been able to get those to work right anyway, even when I have a problem. But if you want that rescue partition, then you would have to not do a Windows to go to put in your desktop. But as a Windows to go USB drive, this is just how it's going to create that. Same thing with Windows 10. It just doesn't create the. Okay, so my display just adjusted because it just found my display driver. But as I was saying, it doesn't create that rescue partition that Windows normally has. I'm going to show you how to download Windows 11. Now, what you're going to do here is you're going to go down here, and you're going to have to pick Windows 11 right here. It'll select download. It'll say select download, but you're just going to select this multi, because this will give you all the Windows 11 install options like Windows 11 Pro, and then you're going to go ahead and hit download here, and you're going to choose what country, and we're going to do United States English. We're going to confirm that, and we're going to do 64-bit, and that'll start our download here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pause that, delete that out of there. Now for Windows 10, I don't know where you find the ISO anymore, but you can create an ISO with their disk utility program, their creation tool, and so if you just hit download, it'll download that. And if you want to download this latest version, the 22H, you just hit update now, and it'll download that tool. When you start it, it'll open up like a regular application. Just hit accept. Create a media USB or ISO. You just hit next. You're going to choose your language, Windows 10, and the architecture. Then you're going to say an ISO. So and then just hit next, and name that file whatever you want to name it, and he'll go ahead and create that for you. So that's how you create an ISO to install Windows 10 using Rufus. So, all right. So basically, I just want to give you some options. Not only creating a USB drive to run Windows, but also a quicker way or a less hassle way to install Windows 10 and Windows 11 in a PC using an NVMe enclosure to first create that and then putting it in your PC. So this is TJ with Tech Made Easy. I hope that was helpful. Stay tuned for my next video because I'm going to show you how to streamline that USB drive, cut the window processes down from like 150 to anywhere between 80 and 50 processes. Just so you can streamline that, only have the apps on there that you want to use, so on and so forth. This is TJ with Tech Made Easy. Have a great day. Thanks. Bye.
Now that was easy peasy.